I have been speaking with a number of people on the other side. We've had conversations ongoing for a while with regard to making sure that we do due diligence here. And I think it would be proper to delay the floor vote for up to, but not more than 1 week, in order to let the FBI continue to do an investigation limited in time and scope to the current allegations that are there, and limited in time to no more than 1 week. And I will vote to advance the bill to the floor with that understanding. And I've spoken to a few other members who on my side of the aisle that may be supportive as well. But that's my position. I think that that we ought to do what we can to make sure that that we do all due diligence with a nomination this important. And I want to say that this committee has acted properly, and the chairman has bent over backwards to do investigations from this committee and to delay this vote in this committee for a week so that that Ms. Ford, Dr. Ford, could be heard, and she was yesterday. So that's with that agreement. I will vote to advance the bill to the floor.
Clerk will call the roll.
Just wait, just 1 second. Can Diane speak?
Could we have a description?
Yeah, what are we voting on?
We are voting on the motion to report the nomination to the floor. The clerk will call the roll.
Wait, that's not my understanding of what, Mr. Chairman, let the senator explain it.
That is my understanding, and if the Democrats could speak to it, if Chris or you, as we talked about before, that the Democrats would accept and endorse a 1 week FBI investigation limited in time and scope.
Well,
That is correct.
since you're the deciding vote here, we'll vote, and then if there's any sort of discussion, we'll go do that after the vote. Call the roll.
Mr. Hatch.
Aye.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn. Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Sass.
Aye.
Mr. Flake. Mr. Flake.
Aye.
This is
Mr.
on his
Quavo.
motion.
Mr. Tillis.
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy.
This is
Aye.
on the nominee.
Mrs. Feinstein.
Yeah.
On the nominee, no.
Mr. Leahy.
On the nominee, no.
Mr. Durbin. No. Mr. Whitehouse.
No.
Ms. Klobuchar.
No.
Mr. Coons.
On the nominee, no.
Mr. Blumenthal.
No.
Ms. Hirono.
No.
Mr. Booker.
No.
Ms. Harris.
No.
Mr. Chairman.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the votes are 11 days, 10 days.
The nominee will be reported to the floor.
Mr. Chairman, may I be recognized?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank my friend and colleague, Senator Flake, and thank you for giving us the time today to have a conversation. A number of my colleagues have asked for a 1 week delay in order that there might be an FBI investigation of what allegations are currently before this committee. I respect Senator Flake's view that in his opinion it was best to respect your having given Dr. Ford the time to be heard yesterday and advance the nominee to the floor. But it is my hope that we could work together on a bipartisan basis to diligently pursue an FBI investigation within the next week, not for the purpose of delay, but for the purpose of investigating further either allegations made by Dr. Ford or others, with a goal towards demonstrating a bipartisan commitment to diligently investigating these allegations. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Flake.
Senator Feinstein.
Thank you. I would support that motion. I think we do need this investigation. As a matter of fact, I sort of misunderstood, Senator Flake, what you were doing. I thought it included a 1 week investigation. So I would like to support the motion for that investigation.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman.
We'll take turns here. Senator.
I love this committee, but we're not the majority leader. Senator Flake has made clear what it would take him to be comfortable on a final passage vote. But it doesn't matter what we say here. This will be up to Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell. So
It is completely up to them.
yeah, and I think
Mr.
Jeff has
Chairman.
made himself very clear, and
No, it's Senator.
let's move.
Senator Leahy. Senator Leahy.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure, because this is somewhat unprecedented. When I do agree with the senator from Arizona that we should have this further investigation. So my understanding is that during the week that is taking place, there will be no action on the floor of the United States Senate on this nomination. Is that correct?
I cannot say that.
Let me say again, I can't make that commitment for the leadership. I can only say that I would be only comfortable moving forward on the floor. I'll move it out of committee, but I will only be comfortable moving on the floor until the FBI has done more investigation than they have already. It may not take them a week. I understand that some of these witnesses may not want to discuss anything further, but I think we owe them due diligence.
Mr. Chairman.
Follow it up.
Just a minute. All I have said to Senator Flake is that I would advocate for the position he took, but I don't control that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Senator Klobuchar.
Mr. Chairman, there are other senators as well who may be interested in this negotiation on the Republican side, and there's not really a set agreement here. All of us had already said we were voting no. It is simply Senator Flake working with all of us to say, for the good of the Senate and the good of the court, the American people deserve to have the facts followed up on. And I really appreciate his willingness to do that. And that is what this is about. This is simply about, and by the way, if Senator McConnell wants to go forward in light of that, and we still have several senators that haven't said how they're voting on this nominee, I actually think this is very important, what just happened right now. So it doesn't have to have an agreement. It is one senator who's standing up.
Senator Cornett.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to express my appreciation to Senator Flake for allowing this process to move forward. There's some difference of opinion among us as to what exactly the FBI investigation would consist of. Some of us think it has been concluded and supplemented by this committee's investigation. Others disagree with that. But I respect the fact that not only Senator Flake advocated to give Dr. Ford a chance to appear in front of the committee, which was the right thing to do, but also that he's allowed this process to move forward, subject to further discussions about what the FBI may or may not be able to come up with. But certainly he maintains his right to cast his vote yea or nay as he sees fit, and maintains significant leverage that way. But I appreciate his support for a full and fair hearing for Dr. Ford and Judge Kavanaugh, as well as his willingness to allow this to go forward subject to his request.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator protocol on Senator Feinstein. And then,
If I, through the chair, could ask a question of Senator Flake, does your amendment include continuing the investigation during this period of time?
If I can respond, there is no amendment. I'm simply stating, and the discussion that we had between us all is that I would hope, and I think we had some agreement before, that the Democrats who have been, I think, justifiably uncomfortable moving ahead could publicly, in an effort to bring this country together, say that we would feel better. I'm not expecting them to vote yes, but not to complain that an FBI investigation has not occurred. And this is what I'm trying to do. This country is being ripped apart here, and we've got to make sure that we do due diligence. I think this committee has done a good job, but I do think that we can have a short pause and make sure that the FBI can investigate. My understanding is that some of us would have to, and I'm prepared to do it, make a request to the White House to ask the FBI to do that investigation. It would be short and limited in scope to the current allegations that have been made.
Mr. Chairman.
But I would just encourage the Democrats who we talked to before to endorse that kind of thing, that we can then move on.
Mr. Chairman.
because of the 2-hour rule, we're adjourned.
What?
The 2-hour rule.
No vote.
When did we come in? When did we come in at noon?
No,
How,
yeah, we did, yeah, the 2-hour rule.
We came in at noon?
Yeah, we knew you were going, we had to get this all done by 2 o'clock.
well, is it done? Is Flake's is it going to happen, or did you cut off a vote?
No, we didn't have a motion in front of us. This is all a gentleman and women's agreement.
But I would assume.
Gentlemen
there's
and women's
no,
agreement.
I would assume.
But I'm committed to,
Just let him say what he's committed to.
well,
Hey, John?
All right, this is what you are looking at. If we understand this correctly, the Senate Judiciary Committee has voted in favor of Brett Kavanaugh being the nominee to the U.S. Supreme Court. What you saw was Senator Flake saying that he would like the FBI to investigate and delay the full vote on the Senate floor for no more than 1 week, and is calling on the president to call for an FBI investigation into the allegations that Christine Blasey Ford made yesterday publicly in front of that Senate committee. But this has all been a little bit unusual and unprecedented, and the CBC's Ellen Morrow is in Washington. She joins me now. And what we heard there, I believe, Ellen, I think it was Senator Feinstein, who was asking Senator Grassley exactly, well, wait a second, what did we vote on? And he said, this is a gentleman's and women's agreement among us that advocating in favor of an FBI investigation before this full vote is put to the floor. And as you see there, Senator Flake there is the one that has been advocating for this. But whether or not that happens is unclear. Would the Senate floor, the Senate majority leader, wait for this investigation? Would this investigation even take place? All of that is somewhat unclear at this point.
Well, that was an extremely stunning moment from Jeff Flake, Andrew, because as of this morning before the hearing began, he was a yes on Kavanaugh. He released a statement saying, I will vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh. Then on the way into the hearing, he was confronted by extremely angry female protesters, some of whom were crying, who were saying, explain your vote to us because we're taking it as you're not listening to someone who says they were sexually assaulted. Flake was, he was in the elevator, he was blocked by the protester, didn't have a huge amount of reaction, but appears to have been stirred at least. Then he went into the hearing room and listened to his Democratic colleagues. When it was his turn to speak during the hearing, instead of speaking, he tapped a few of them on the shoulder. They went out into the hallway and they were having conversations. Now we know what those conversations were about. Jeff Flake really sort of making an extremely unprecedented move, coming back into the hearing room saying, I will vote to advance the Kavanaugh nomination to the floor, to the whole Senate, but I want there to be an FBI investigation before the Senate has the final vote on whether or not to confirm Judge Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Now, this is not Jeff Flake's decision. Obviously, it's not even Chuck Grassley's decision. This has to be decided in part by Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the House, but it also has to come from the White House, whether or not there is going to be an FBI investigation into Brett Kavanaugh. So there is a lot of work to be done on whether or not that would happen. President Trump's not going to be keen about this at all, obviously, but they need the votes. And if you have someone like Jeff Flake saying, I'm not going to vote on a final confirmation until there is an FBI investigation, because an FBI investigation would be reasonable, he says, then they almost don't want to risk trying to force a whole Senate vote before an investigation, because the Republicans can only afford to lose one vote. So if you have Flake essentially saying, I don't want to vote until there's an investigation, that also allows moderate Republican senators like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski to say, yeah, I don't want to vote either until there is an FBI investigation. So if they try to ram through a vote now with this whole caveat out there, it's unclear they would get the votes. So this really sort of puts the president, it puts Mitch McConnell between a rock and a hard place. Do you try to vote without an FBI investigation when you're pretty sure to possibly lose at this point unless something else unforeseen happens? Or do you go through and authorize and order this FBI investigation, which is what the accusers of Brett Kavanaugh, Christine Blasey Ford, and Deborah Ramirez, and Julie Swetnick have been asking for? So a really stunning moment, a stunning turn of events orchestrated by Jeff Flake there, one that, again, changes this whole story.
And, you know, Ellen, I'm just seeing this as we've been talking, that the president, Trump, says it is up to the Senate and Chairman Grassley about opening background investigation into Kavanaugh. So, you know, there does seem to be, Ellen, this, because we heard Senator Flake, I believe, I'm calling on the president to ask the FBI to open up an investigation, and now the president seems to be suggesting, well, no, it's up to the Senate to ask for an investigation. I mean, I don't know about you, but this seems as clear as mud to me.
It is as clear as mud, obviously, but it would be up to the White House. That's why yesterday during the testimony, you heard Democratic Senator Dick Durbin say to Brett Kavanaugh, why don't you turn around and tell White House counsel Don McGahn to ask the president to authorize an FBI investigation?
Sorry to interrupt, Ellen, but let's listen to Senator Graham.
And they would say that would be a better process. That would be progress, and Jeff's trying his best to, you know, bring the country together and vote the best way he knows how. So I don't know if that's the agreement. I'll get back with you.
Do you expect Senator McConnell to honor this?
I don't know. That's why I'm going to go talk to him right now.
Do you think it would be a good idea if he did honor this?
Last time I looked, you need 50 votes.
So, but right now we don't know if anybody else would join up.
Well, all I can say is that right now, what Jeff is saying is makes sense to me.
Do you think that Murkowski commented?
I don't know. I'm not speaking for Mitch. I'm going to talk with Jeff, and somebody's got to explain this to Trump. So, I guess that'll be my job.
If it's going to take 50 votes, are you going to back this move?
Huh?
If it's going to take
if I'm nothing, I'm practical. Okay.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, Ellen, let's continue to talk about that, because that was obviously an interesting moment where Lindsey Graham, who has been close to the president, President Trump, saying, you know, this is about Senator Flake trying to bring the country together after quite a divisive discussion and debate, and saying someone's got to explain this to the president.
That's right. It was a really telling moment. I should have mentioned that when Jeff Flake was speaking, that he said this is part of wanting to bring the country together. Obviously, this whole hearing, this whole situation has been incredibly divisive, and he said the Democrats are unjustifiably comfortable that there hasn't been this investigation. So he said that was part of his motivation, which Graham reiterated there. The most telling thing that Lindsey Graham just said in that brief clip is he said, the last time I looked, you need 50 votes. So that is what this is going to come down to. It would be incredibly unlikely for there to be a whole Senate vote at this point unless there is now an FBI investigation, because Jeff Flake has essentially said he doesn't want to vote until there is an FBI investigation. As I said, that allows moderate Republicans to kind of say the same thing and follow him up. The Republicans can only afford to lose one vote, assuming no Democrats vote with the Republicans, and that would also seem unlikely after this call now for an FBI investigation. So for those who don't want an investigation, their hands are really essentially tied by the math now, and they really have to look at the numbers. And if you have someone like Jeff Flake saying, I don't want to vote without an investigation, then they're probably not going to have the votes to get Kavanaugh through without that. Graham also, as you said, needs to talk to Mitch McConnell about this and President Trump.
Leader.
Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, that's right. And Mitch McConnell has set the schedule for the next few days about a vote happening tomorrow on procedure, another vote on Monday, then the main vote happening on Tuesday. That schedule is likely to get blown out of the window at this point after this call from Jeff Flake. Graham also mentioned President Trump saying that someone's going to have to explain this to the president. This is kind of in the White House's call to authorize the investigation. But again, if you don't authorize it, the Republicans haven't wanted an investigation. The White House hasn't wanted one. They've said that there's no point to it, essentially. But if you don't have this investigation, then they don't have the votes. So their hands, again, are essentially tied.
Hang on there, Ellen, because now we're going to listen to Senator Blumenthal.
Judgment without an FBI investigation. And Senator Flake has made very clear, and I appreciate it, that he wants to know more. And he believes this delay is the responsible step to take. All of that said, let me be very blunt. Before we ended, I was about to be recognized to make this point and motion that this FBI investigation has to be real and penetrating so that the truth and facts and evidence are all uncovered. This FBI investigation cannot be a show or a charade. It must be real, and it must go to the witnesses who are likely to produce facts and evidence.
Senator, is it your understanding that Flake had the assurances of other senators in his party before he decided to make this move?
Senator Flake talked to a number of senators in his own party as well as on our side, and I appreciate that he was seeking common ground.
What can he and his colleagues do if the leadership decides to press ahead with the vote anyway?
Obviously, Senator Flake could vote against the nomination.
Has he told you he would do that?
No, he hasn't indicated to me what he would do, but the incentive for the leadership following his wishes as to the delay is they need his vote, along with all of the other members of the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, by the way, who initiated these conversations today? Was it him or a Democrat?
I can't comment.
And that is Democratic Senator Blumenthal. And that is an interesting point that Senator Blumenthal made in that, what are the options going forward? And that it was, Senator Flake could vote against the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh. He hasn't indicated that he would do that, but he has indicated that he would be uncomfortable voting for the nomination if there were not to be an FBI investigation into these allegations made against the nominee. Ellen.
That's right. That's right. You saw Jeff Flake vote in favor of moving the nominee, the consideration of the nominee to the whole Senate floor, but he said he does not feel comfortable, as you just said, voting on whether or not to actually confirm Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court without an FBI investigation. And Flake did put some terms on the investigation because he knows this is not going to be a popular request from people who have not wanted there to be an investigation, saying that it should not last longer than a week. So he's not asking for something that's going to take months and months, but he said that he agrees with the Democrats in terms of being unjustifiably uncomfortable, were his words, I believe, and saying that there needs to be this investigation. He also said part of the reason there should be an investigation is an effort to bring the country together. And then you heard Lindsey Graham a few moments ago say that is a reasonable thing. And if there's anything this country needs right now, it is to be brought more together, as we've seen over the past few days, this really toxic partisan environment that we're facing now. But again, it's all going to come, just looking at the monitor to see if anyone else is speaking, but it's all going to come down to the math here, Andrew. If you have Jeff Flake saying that he doesn't feel comfortable voting on whether or not Kavanaugh should be actually confirmed unless there is an investigation, then you're already down potentially one Republican senator. And if no Democrats vote with the Republicans, which is unlikely, then you can only afford to lose one Republican senator. And there are people who are more moderate than Jeff Flake on this issue in the Republican Party, people like Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski. And it was reported several days ago that Susan Collins was saying behind closed doors, why can't there just be an investigation? So now that Jeff Flake has made this call publicly, it's really easy for someone like Susan Collins to say, I agree with Jeff, there should be an investigation. Someone like Lisa Murkowski could then follow along with that call. And Flake, in his brief comments, did sort of hint that there are Republican senators who feel the same way as he does. So really hard to see this going to a full Senate vote because the numbers, at least at this point, just don't appear like they would be there.